Hey everybody, how's it going? Today we're going to talk about one of the new changes that came along with version 15.0, and that is the Transcension Kai. Now it is Kai, but as you can see from the character here, it is a slightly different Kai. The Kai here means, improved, changed kind of thing. So as you can see, God Striker is going to be the first recipient of this, and there's a bunch of changes. Of course, if you saw the last video about the version 15.0, you basically know most of the changes that come with it, but since it was a long video, even though it was the first thing I talked about, just going to make sure this is separated out. So for those of you who want to know about the Transcension Kai, or Transcension Kai, I'm going to try my best, going forward to say not only the translated English version, but the Japanese version. So when you hear it in Japanese, you kind of understand it that way too. So I'm going to try to make an effort going forward doing that. But this Transcension Kai comes with other benefits. So let's go through them one more time real quick. So of course the first thing is that its max level will increase to 120. When you go up that high, of course, all stats, which also include the bump combo, all of that goes up. Speed, HP, attack, and again, bump combo damage all go up. The plus morling numbers will not go up, so you don't have to spend any more morlings. Don't worry about that. And just in case you're curious, the amount of max Ps you need, the Okukenshis, those you need exactly 50 of those to go from 99 to 120. So it is a pretty significant amount. Of course, you can wait until Monst Day to get those bonuses, or wait until the weekend to get the raid ups, but maybe you don't want to wait that long because it's pretty nice to get that stat bonus right away. In addition to getting up to 120 right away, you will also go into a super bias type. So right now you can see, well, actually I think the picture is slightly different. So Lucy is of course blast type, Hogeki. And that Hogeki turns into Chou Hogeki, super blast essentially. And when you go into the super form, you actually get some bonuses along with it. Again, we went over it in the version update, but since it's a separate video, I want to make sure it's super clear. So what happens here again, once you go from balance to a super balance, you get 20% more HP from the heart items, and you will do 5% more damage if you have the elemental advantage. So a fire type against a wood type, you get 5% damage by hitting it. Also, if your bump combo is of the fire element, you will do 5% more damage that way, even through the bump combo. That's pretty okay. I don't know if it's super good, but maybe it'll make a difference. Maybe to cross the one punch line, it'll be good enough. Super power, and that gives you a 20% boost with the sword item. And the first enemy you hit, you'll do 20% more damage. Remember, this is only the first monster you hit, though. So keep that in mind. Speed, super speed, turns into giving you more speed when you get the boot item. And you will also speed up the first time you hit a wall. Now, the important thing here is that it must be a wall, so blocks. Sometimes, blocks are considered as wall, but it does not count for this. You have to actually physically hit the wall to get that speed up bonus. Again, the game usually don't give percentage boosts when talking about speed, so they don't talk about that, but it is a significant change, I feel like. The amount of extra movement you get, pretty noticeable. And the last one is Super Blast. Super Blast will give you 4 turns instead of 3 when you get the Hourglass item, and also when your bump combo is activated indirectly, which means when explosion happens or something else besides a monster physically hitting your monster activates the bump combo. Instead of doing only 50% damage, it will do the full 100% damage. So that is a pretty significant change. And I know I said in the previous video, maybe you didn't know that it only does 50% when it's indirectly activated, but that's a pretty good change for sure. Now, there's also a connect skill, but I am going to actually Transcend Kai my own God Striker here right now. And as you can see, the costs are pretty hefty. It costs 10 Dragon Gems. Jushin Ryu? That's we're gonna have to start farming for these probably, since there's no item to, you know, bypass all of these. 10 is a lot. And I haven't farmed for dragon gems in a long time, and you know, it's pretty painful, so not looking forward to that. But once you get that, then you go into the Jushin Kai form, and as you can see, both the type and the level are now yellow, indicating that it has been superified, and the level is also yellow, so you gotta get to 120. But the important thing here is the connect skill, which is right under the title. And for God Striker, it comes with the ability called Super Minesweeper. And if you don't know what that is, that will give you 4 mines at the start of every stage in the game. And that also includes stages that don't have mines. So whenever you think of it like the barrier, like Lucy or Mana has, right? Like when you start the stage, that barrier goes up. Pretty cool. You know what's also cool? Technically, this is not an ability. So if you get ability locked, you will still have Super Minesweeper. It is not going to be locked. And so this is going to be an interesting tweak, I think, going forward. Like for now, it's an ability. Maybe it's going to be something else. Who knows what else they could throw in there in the connect skill ability here. Now, to activate the connect skill, you have to fulfill the requirement that goes with that monster. Now, of course, you know, hopefully, you know, I'm around somewhere or somebody else is there to translate for you what it is, because it's not going to be exactly obvious. However, for God Striker, as you can see, the requirement is you need at least 2 monsters of a different class. Now, those 2 monsters could be the same class, but the important thing is that at least 2 monsters in your team are not what God Striker is, and he is a Kami, God or deity class. So the interesting thing here is that they have stopped you from doing a full team of God Strikers, right? Because if you do a full team of God Strikers, you are not going to have this ability active. So at most, you can have 2 God Strikers on your team. I think that's pretty clever. If they keep this kind of only 2 or more different type kind of things, it will force you to be a little, tweak your team a little so that you can't have a full party of that Transcension Kai. Okay. So now I said, like, it might be a little hard to tell if your team has the connect skill active, but there's actually one way we can see it in action. So let's try this. So let's go to a quest. Yeah, I mean, this is fine. So when you go into the quest, there's going to be a little icon on the top right where you see this connect, right? This little link here. This is basically saying that your team right now is not going to have the connect skill active. Why? Because we have only one monster that's not a deity type, and that's Corsair here, right? She's a speed type. Or sorry, her class is Union. We need one more, so let's swap out one of these God Strikers for this Chocobo. And now you can see that the icon on top of your God Striker is colored in. And so now that should be your sign that, yes, God Striker has his connect skill active. So make sure you keep that in mind. I mean, you can always highlight it and see, okay, right, I need 2 or more different classes. Again, it's in Japanese, so, you know, ask around if you need help. But at least, you know, every video I'm going to make sure to tell you when there's a Transcension Kai what that connect skill is going to be. So keep watching my videos and you'll never have to worry. That's a good way to advertise my video, right? Alright. The other thing to note is that you can revert a Transcension Kai form back to its standard Transcended form. Because do remember that the abilities between the two are slightly different, right? God Striker Kai has Super Null Damage Wall, Laser Stop, and Vital Killer. The normal form has Flight, Null Damage Wall, and Counter Slayer. So they are a little different, right? Like, God Striker loses Flight, instead gets Laser Stop. And that Counter Slayer turns into a Vital Slayer. Right? Vital Slayer gives you extra damage when you are at when the enemy is at 50% or higher. Counter Slayer, on the other hand, that also has its benefits. So maybe you don't want to transcend all of your God Strikers, for example. Also, that God Striker you don't want more than 2 of in the same team, right? So I do have 4 strikers, so maybe I could have 2 and 2, and that actually wouldn't be a bad thing, right? But it's an important thing to keep in mind, right? And I mean, sure, you can revert it, but like you saw, it costs 10 Dragon Gems to Transcend Kai. I wonder what's the cost to go back. Okay, so it's probably it's gonna be the same cost. You can use your Insta Transcend Gem to go back, but why would you do that, right? That's pretty costly. However, when you go back, it will revert it to level 99 and its standard bias type. Unless you use those items that we talked about before that increases a monster to level 120 and its bias form. Those will still retain those bonuses. But, I mean, keep in mind that when you Transcend Kai a monster, it already gets those bonuses off the bat. So unless you are really adamant about its other form and that you want that bonuses in both situations, it doesn't seem worth it, to me at least, to give it on a monster that has a Transcended Kai, right? So, like I said on the previous video, watch out for monsters that are probably going to get a Kai Transcension Kai form, right? Because you probably want to use it on a more recent monster that got a Transcension, because those are probably the least likely to get a Transcension Kai, right? So somebody let's talk about the monsters that got recently transcended or revealed that they will get one, like Yamato or Sonshoko. Those monsters, they're gonna get standard transcensions, I assume, right? So if you really like them, then maybe consider using those, right? Because those guys probably will not get one for a long time. Now, you're probably wondering who is gonna get one soon. Well, let's take a look at history, right? Like, what are the oldest monsters that have transcensions? Because those are probably the best candidates for Kai forms, right? So Hunter King, the Agnamuts, they're the oldest, almost 4 years ago, right? And then, of course, on October 29th is when God Striker got his Transcension, so he, cut the line. But you have Susano and World, or Mundus, on December 22nd. They're the next set of oldest monsters. And then the ones after that are Lindsay and Royce. So, there's a good amount of monsters that come. You could also think, maybe what if the newer monsters, they just completely skip Transcensions and just go to Transcension Kais, right? Like, who knows, Pandora in the future, right? She was rumored, maybe she would get one. Or maybe, like the newer Transcensions, they just stop doing standard ones and they give them Kais afterwards. I don't know how it's going to work, but it's an interesting branching of Transcensions, and maybe we'll get 2 per news, right? 1 Transcension, 1 Transcension Kai. Are we only going to get 1 for going forward? If so, then maybe it was a good thing that Lorelei didn't get a Transcension, right? Because maybe she'll just jump to a Transcension Kai. I don't know, but it is an interesting new thing, right? Especially with those connect skills. You don't know what abilities they could throw there. Are they going to throw something else besides abilities in there, right? It definitely opens up new possibilities, but I mean, this does, the inflation of power creep in the game is definitely going to shoot up with these new things, right? It will be interesting. I mean, just the fact that those scrolls exist to give already transcended monsters the virtual Kai mode, right? By giving them 120 and the super tight mode by that special means. So, we'll see. And I forget if I talked about it on this video, but I mean, like I said, when you revert it back and forth, the scrolls, if a scroll ends up getting a Kai form, right, you don't get refunded those scrolls, right? I mean, you do retain them if you go back and forth, right? Because you can still get that 120, but you won't get it back. So, I mean, be careful about who you choose it from. Yeah. Alright, let me know if you have any questions about the Transcension Kai forums. I'll be more than happy to answer them for you. There's a lot more other stuff to go over for that comes with the post-anniversary news. So look forward to more videos. And until next time, bye-bye.